You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah, Sheldon Jones, getting you ready for another week of CFL football. Man, I picked the wrong week to get into walking again, exercising again. Now, I avoid the midday heat, so I end up going out at night when it's midnight, but it's like 18 by then or something like that, but it's not your average 18 degrees. It's thick. It's muggy. Like by the time I get home, my fingertips are just dripping sweat, and I'm only going for like half an hour. So either I'm incredibly out of shape or, or this heat's bugging me, man. How are you handling it?
Oh, it's the worst. I want to move to like Yellowknife or Antarctica somewhere. I hate this. It's funny though. I decided to start walking this week too, but I just haven't done it yet because of how freaking hot it is. So
yeah, I'm a night guy, so I appreciate going around at night. At least it's cooled down a little bit. Sometimes the police drive by and they've actually stopped. They've been looking for somebody. Look, man, I don't have any information. I know I kind of look sketchy, but I promised them I didn't do anything wrong. Now, let's get into your power rankings. There hasn't been much movement over the past few weeks, but this week, there's going to be a lot of movement because I think a lot of the positions that are up for debate, BC, Saskatchewan, even Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, that kind of tier. Winnipeg and Calgary play this week. BC, Saskatchewan play this week. There's going to be a lot of answers and some movement with those power rankings following this week. So that's pretty exciting.
Yep. We'll finally be able to see who should be number 2 after getting a lot of flack from pretty much a single person.
I don't know. After last week, Hamilton is number 2.
We have to put the Atlantic Schooners on the graphic. I keep getting Matt keeps giving that comment every week. So
that's more work, man. But they'd be number 1. They're undefeated, man. Undefeated.
Yeah, so like the only thing that changed was Winnipeg and Hamilton swapped spots. People were some people were mad that I left at the Elks at 7, but I wasn't going to drop them on a bye. I've only moved one team on the bye this week, and that was Calgary, and they actually moved up because just a couple teams above them were terrible, and they needed to go down. But yeah, like you said, we're going to have a lot of movement because, BC wins. They're obviously going to go up to number 2. If Saskatchewan wins and Montreal loses, they might flip spots. If Winnipeg beats Calgary, they have to move up and Calgary has to move down. Edmonton, Ottawa, like you said, every matchup is pretty much a direct with the neighbors on the power rankings. So it'll be interesting.
Week 6 of the CFL season does start Thursday night. Hopefully Drake is not betting for your team.
He can bet for the Lions all he wants.
The curse continues, betting on Team Canada against Argentina. Now, I'm not a soccer expert, but I think if you're betting $300,000 on Canada, maybe you've got too much money anyway.
That's a fact.
I don't know. That was a straight up stupid bet. Betting against the Celtics, that seemed pretty stupid to me. And then Oilers, Panthers, it could have gone either way, really. But yeah, more money lost for Drake, and I'm sure he's heartbroken over it. The Montreal Alouettes, the still undefeated Montreal Alouettes, are 6.5 point favorites over the Toronto Argonauts on Thursday Night Football. The over-under is set at 50.5. Now the Argos come into this game losing 2 in a row, including a home game to the very same Alouettes a couple weeks ago. All of a sudden, the perception surrounding the Argos has changed a little bit. Now they lost 2 in a row. The turnovers have really piled up, especially last week against Saskatchewan. not an easy task now because they're going to Montreal, and it's proven to be a really hard place to play. The Horns are going crazy. They're going wild in Montreal, and this is a tough task for Cameron Dukes and the Argos.
Yeah, and like you said on our last show, like it seems like maybe teams have figured out Cameron Dukes, which is quite unfortunate for Argo fans because it looked like he was, after the first week or two, like he was possibly going to be the next guy that could maybe unseat another quarterback. But yeah, going into Montreal, it's one of the toughest places to play. We've always, the St. Catharines hangover, but I don't know if that's anything that really is happening anymore. But listen, it's just a tough place to play, and they're firing on all cylinders. They started slow against Calgary and still came back and won the game, right? So if Toronto can get a quick start, like they need to get a quick start. Anytime you're on the road, you do, but they need to be able to try to take the crowd out of it, try to get those guys upset so that they're not, honking those horns all the time. But that's going to be a tough thing to do.
Yeah, Montreal actually has given up the least points per game this season. They're the only team to have given up less than 100 points, and that is through 5 games. They're giving up the least offense, the least passing yards as well. The Argo offense, I think their bread and butter has been the rushing game. And they got guys that can do it, including the quarterback. They've got Kadeem Carey. They've got Deontay McMahon. And that might be the strategy that they employ against the Alouettes. The Owls actually, they're giving up 5.1 yards a rush, which is actually 8th in the CFL. So there's an opportunity there. The Argos have a strong offensive line, and they're going to have to lean on them if they're going to come out of Montreal with the win. They are experiencing some injury issues, the Argos are. Jake Seresna ended up leaving the game against Saskatchewan last week. He's out. They're also going to be without wide receiver Tommy Neild, who has been getting some opportunities here and there, the good Canadian receiver there. Now, who are they going to look to in the receiving game with him missing? Now, David Ungerer's already been listed out, another Canadian receiver. They need a bounce-back game from DeMonte Coxey. He has had some circus catches, incredible games in this league. Now's the time to rebound. Like Tim White had the struggles earlier in the season. I had a big game. He's going to want to have a bigger game here. Now, the Alouettes, their star safety, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, is a game-time decision here. Kind of looks like leaning to not playing. So maybe the Argos could test the Alouettes deep early in this game. They've got Coxey, they've got Daniels. If they can connect on those plays, like you said, a fast start would be pretty good for the Argos.
Yeah, and after a receiver has a bad game, or even in the game when they have a bad drop or something like that, the quarterbacks always like to go right back to them to get them kind of back into the game, right? So I'm looking for Cameron Dukes to go right at Coxey and try to get him, just to get that first target, that first reception, to get that kind of monkey off his back so that he can kind of get into the game there. But Northorpe likes to really confuse the quarterbacks that he plays his defense against. So that's going to be a tough look for a basic rookie coming in here. He didn't fare so well the other game against them, right? So hopefully they can. I think he's best when he's rolling around in the pocket a lot. Like, I don't think he's a pocket passer, but the past couple of games, it seemed like they tried to keep him in the pocket a little bit more. So I think if they want to have some success, they have to have him moving around and getting back into that running game.
The Alouettes offense lead the CFL in offensive points per game. Overall points per game, goes to the Riders with scores from their defense. But the Alouettes are putting up over 31 offensive points a game. They've scored the most offensive touchdowns. They're second in net offense a game. So what the Alouettes bring to the table is balance. They're so good. They protect the ball. They're good at stopping everything on defense, and that special teams with James Letcher Jr., he puts that team in great field position all the time. And hey, the Argos got that too. Now they kind of faltered over the last couple games, but we saw what Janarian Grant could do on special teams, and they do have the great offensive line. Like I said, the great bread and butter of that team. So if they're able to set up some nice holes for Kadeem Carey and get some good gains on first down, the Argos are actually last in the CFL in giving up yards to the opponent per play. No, I should say first, 5.23 yards a play. The Stamps are last, which is quite interesting. Well, I don't know how you want to analyze that when they're going to be taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this week. But a few weeks ago, this one was considered, a heavyweight tilt. Undefeated in the East. Argos Alouettes. Now it's really leaning towards the Alouettes. And things have changed in a couple weeks. Now it's just like, who's going to be able to beat this Alouettes team? They were on the ropes last week against Calgary, so they are beatable. Of course they're beatable. But I just don't know if Toronto's the team to be able to do it right now.
No, and Toronto actually needs to worry about Ottawa, keeping pace with Ottawa, because if Ottawa gets into Edmonton and pulls out a win there, and Toronto loses here, then Ottawa's in second place. So I think it's not so much Toronto worrying about Montreal anymore; it's just worrying about securing second place. It's like the old days with Anthony Calvillo in Montreal, and every year it was, they're going to get first, but who's going to get second?
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, in defense of my power rankings on our Facebook page, there's a lot of parity in the league this year. I know Montreal seems like they're head and shoulders above everyone, but again, last week it showed that, even Calgary can, for 3/4 of a game, look better than them, right? So I think we're kind of in a very good place in the CFL right now where any team could win at any night. And for us fans, that's amazing, because we're going to get entertaining games every day.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Friday Night Football are 4.5-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders. Now, Calgary's depth at running back really getting tested here, because they had a great room, with B.J. Emmons and Peyton Logan and Dedrick Mills. Now, Dedrick missed last week, and then both Logan and Emmons ended up getting banged up. Now, Emmons is going to miss this game. So the Stamps, they went to sign Jamal Morrow, who has spent the last few years with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And hey, I want to give a shout out to Jamal Morrow. It's pretty cool. My grandma's in a assisted living facility. And during the off season, Jamal Morrow and a couple of Roughriders went and visited that facility, and my grandma got pictures with Jamal Morrow. Nice. Oh, look at the smile on her. Like, I just love what these guys do in our communities. It doesn't get talked about enough. But Jamal Morrow, a great guy. I want to see him back on the field, but he failed his physical, and he failed a physical with the Stampeders back in February. So that wrist of his, man, it must still be in rough shape. I got a feel for the guy.
Oh yeah, like you said, he's an awesome player, and for whatever reason, the Riders decided to move on from him. But that doesn't mean he's not a good running back. And I want nothing more than to see him play in the CFL again. So hopefully he can, get some rehab going or some physio and figure out what this issue is that's not letting him pass physicals, so that he can get back into the league soon.
The Stamps have also signed linebacker Diego Fagot, who ended up spending training camp with the Roughriders he made some
looks
plays.
good.
He might be a good addition to that team somewhere down the line.
Oh, for sure. Like, he looked really good. It just, there was the Riders had a lot of great players on defense, so it just didn't work out for him this time. But I'm happy he was able to land on his feet back in the league, because he was highly touted out of Navy, I think, right? Or maybe Notre Dame. I can't remember, but he was highly touted, and he had great stats in college. And like I said, I was hoping he was going to make the team here, but he didn't. So hopefully he can show out in Calgary.
Yeah, both teams, Saskatchewan and Calgary, got strong linebacker rooms. You know, Cameron Judge and Micah Awe in Calgary, Brian Cox, Jameer Thurman in Saskatchewan, obviously. And it was Diego Fagot with Navy. You are correct. 6'3", 238 pounds. Made some plays in training camp with the Riders. As for the Bombers, they've officially added Lucky Whitehead to the practice roster. Another guy that I think the CFL is just better when he's in it. He started his CFL career with the Bombers, ended up going to BC. He's on the PR right now, but the injury issues that Winnipeg has experienced at receiver, to be able to bring in a guy of his caliber, a guy that has CFL experience, pretty good luxury for the Bombers. I do hope that we see some of those colorful entrances that we've seen. Hey, the colorful hat with the wheel on top. I'm a Lucky Whitehead guy, and I would love to see him back on the field in game action. Who we're going to be seeing in game action again this week is Zach Collaros. He ended up missing last week for the Bombers with the thorax injury. That gave Chris Streveler a start. Hopefully he's 100%, because, man, it feels weird at this point of the season that Zach Collaros still does not have a touchdown pass. Will that change this week against Calgary? It feels really weird to say that out loud, but it's just the fact, Sheldon.
It is the fact. It's unfortunate, and it's unfortunately been the fact all the way up until the playoffs last year. There's the joke going around that this is playoff Zach, and that's I don't know if that's very fair, but listen, Zach is we've all said it, we've all talked about it. He had the benefit of a elite O-line and elite receivers, and right now he's missing some pieces on that O-line, and he's missing some of those receivers. So when you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, some shortcomings or some limitations can show up. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And hopefully for Bomber fans' sake, he can get it going. Just like Tim White, just like Coxie. Once he throws that first touchdown, that'll get the monkey off his back, and he'll be able to probably go on a roll here, because we've seen Zach do that time and time again. But it's crucial that he gets that first one.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, because football is the ultimate team sport. So, of course, Zach has benefited from a great O-line and great receivers. Every championship team does. In the CFL, it's the best O-line and probably the best Canadians that's going to give you the best chance to win. And the Bombers have had the best O-line, the best Canadians, and some of the top receivers of the past few years. Now they're without those receivers and without a few of those key offensive linemen, and we're seeing what has happened there. So far this season, the Bombers giving up a league worst 111.6 rushing yards a game. So the Stampeders, we talked about their running back depth being tested a little bit. They're happy to have Dedrick Mills back and available this week. That might be how they attack the Bombers, because Jake Maier started the season well, kind of iffy in recent games. If they put the ball into, Dedrick's hands, and the trend continues with the Bombers giving up chunks of yards on the ground, continually playing in 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 4, will only be good for the Stampeders on Friday Night Football.
For sure, but I really hope that Dedrick Mills is actually as close to 100% as he can be, just because of the way he plays, the way he just attacks the holes and will just bull rush over people. That leads to getting nicked. And so hopefully for his sake, he can stay healthy. And like you said, with Winnipeg giving up that amount of yards on the ground, this is a perfect time for him to go off.
And all that being said, the Stampeders aren't great against the run either. They are giving up 6.1 yards per carry. That's worst in the CFL. They're giving up 8.1 yards a play on first down. That is worst in the CFL. So the Stamps, they're also giving up 100 rush yards a game. And this feels like, to me, another kind of game that the Bombers played last week. Lots of carries to Oliveira, a lot of rushing attempts because the Stamps haven't been able to force a lot of second and longs themselves. So if Winnipeg is going to be, playing in second and short, that's a recipe to success for them. And I think from what we've seen from Oliveira over the past few weeks, he's not exactly in a good mood. And I'm okay if he's my running back and he's getting the ball and he's not happy. I think that is good for your offense.
Oh, yeah, 100%. He plays better when he's angry. Most players do. And I think there can't be anybody on that team who's happy to start 1-4 when you've gone to the Grey Cup the last 4 years in a row. So they're all going to want to play extra harder to that next level just to try to get that next win, because let's face it, this could be the matchup for third place as it seems right now. If Edmonton isn't able to get some wins, and if Calgary and Saskatchewan and BC are able to maintain the amount of wins that they're getting, this is the matchup for third place. So both teams kind of need to win this game. It's very interesting with all, like, as I said, the parity in the league, but we're already seeing matchups that could be playoff potential stuff this early in the season. And there's a lot of people who say, the CFL doesn't start till after Labor Day. Well, definitely not this year.
And they all count.
Yeah.
And a lot of season series kind of being decided early. Like if Montreal beats Toronto here, I mean, that I can't see the Owls going on a slide where they lose 5 in a row at this point, making first place, a real possibility for other teams in the East. So it's critical for Toronto. It's critical for Winnipeg not to want to lose that tiebreaker to Calgary either, losing to them a few weeks ago. So, hey, Friday Night Football, I think this is going to be another hard-hitting game. Micah Awe and Cam Judge trying to stop Brady Oliveira, there's going to be hard hits on Friday Night Football. The Saturday night game at BC Place is the BC Lions, 7.5-point favorites over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The over-under at 51.5. That is a pretty steep line in favor of the BC Lions. It's the watermelon smash. It looks like they might be getting close to 40K. The upper deck's open. Great attendance. It looks like Saturday night in Vancouver. I'm thinking the betting line probably has a little to do with Shea Patterson, obviously starting this game with Trevor Harris on the 6-game injured list. Now, Shea Patterson, he didn't win the game for the Riders, but he didn't lose the game, and that's important when your guy's not turning the ball over. But those BC Lions, they're going to want to get after him and test him and make it pretty hard on him playing in the Dome in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's no different than what Toronto did to him, and it took him a while to figure it out, what he was seeing out there. But like you said, he didn't lose the game. often when a backup will go in there and he gets overwhelmed, and that leads to either a fumble or an interception, and you can take a team out of it right away. But if Shea can just continue to manage the game, that's all he needs to be, is a game manager. He needs to just be the best Matt Nichols he can be, and just not turn over the ball. Find his receivers, hand off the ball to AJ Ouellette, find AJ Ouellette on screens. I think there is a recipe for the Riders to win this game. I'm not picking the Riders to win this game, but I think that if he can have another game where he doesn't turn over the ball, that's going to be a huge point in the right side for them to win the game, because the Riders defense are ball hawks. They lead the league in turnovers. I think it's 11 they've caused. They're plus 11 in the turnover ratio, I believe is what it is. And let's face it, I know we talked about it the past few years. There's the good VA and the bad VA. We've seen a lot more good than bad lately, and I love that, because I love Vernon Adams Jr. And I'm going to say this, and I know it's not the exact same thing, but the last time Corey Mace defense played Vernon Adams threw 6 interceptions. Now, that was a different team, but I think what that says is Corey Mace knows how to rattle VA. And if you can rattle VA, force him to run around a lot, force him to chuck off his back foot or throw across his body, to go for those 50-50 balls, I think when the Riders have Marcus Sayles and Roland Milligan back there, they have a good chance of coming down with some of those 50-50 balls. So I think this is going to be a great game. I just don't know if it's going to be like an offensive shootout or a defensive struggle. I'm not sure. I think the first quarter is going to be quite the chess match between these their teams, just kind of figuring each other out, trying to pressure both quarterbacks, because I think, like I said before, you're going to try to pressure VA just as much as BC's going to try to pressure Shea. But the Riders lost a couple of D linemen to injury that we're going to talk about right away here. So I'll just segue to that, and you can take it away.
Well, and also I'll say this about last year's Argos, like the ones that forced those interceptions on VA, they're a lot better at rushing the quarterback than this year's Riders so far. Yeah. And I do think that's an area that the Riders need to figure out. Like, in the CFL, we don't see too many quote unquote coverage, sacks, things like that, because to be able to cover these receivers on a 65-yard field, and VA can move around, and since week 1, the protection that VA has gotten has been part of the reason why he's been able to be so lethal. So for sure. The thing is, I think Shea Patterson is a capable quarterback. I think he'll be able to put up some points in the CFL, but it's a problem if they fall behind early on. So if they allow, I don't know if they want to get into shootout with the Lions. That's what I'm saying. No. But at the same time, the Riders, they've been a fourth quarter team. They've been a comeback team this year so far. So I'm not sure if they do get down by 1 or 2 scores at the beginning of the fourth quarter, if they can even be counted out yet, just because of what they've done. And I know everyone's going to say, they played Edmonton, they played Hamilton twice. But the point is they came back and they won some of those games. So you can only play who's put in front of you. It doesn't matter what team they are. But I think, I know I'm really trying to pump up the Riders here. Maybe that's my bias, whatever. But I just think that there's a recipe there. I don't necessarily think they are going to win, like I said. But I think I read a lot online where there's a lot of fans that are just, writing off the Riders this week. And I can understand that. But I've been a Rider fan long enough to know what a trap game is. And this could be a trap game for BC. Just there's some bulletin board material on that the Riders can
look to. And so, like, they went into Hamilton and they pretty much throttled Hamilton. Yeah, Hamilton came back a little bit, but I just see, sometimes I've seen trap games happen in the past in kind of this same circumstance. So that could happen this week. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think it's a trap. It's for first in the West. And if the Lions aren't ready for this one, maybe they aren't ready for first in the West. But the Riders have a lot to prove too. They want to prove that they belong in the conversation for best in the West. And that's bottom line what this game is all about. The pace. I know this is pace, and talking about pace at this point of the season is kind of dumb.
But it's fun.
It is fun. Like, the numbers that Vernon Adams Jr. is putting up. Now, if the pace continues, it'll be like 6,300 passing yards, which is 300 yards short of Doug Flutie's 6,600 yards in 1991. 300 yards short. That's like half a football game against the Ticats. So, I mean, the Ticats are going to visit BC Place again this year. I don't know. Maybe that's Matt Dunnigan's record is in trouble. Sorry, Hamilton. You're on bye. I should probably leave you out of this. But what really impresses me, the pace of touchdowns to interceptions. I think it's like 43 touchdowns to 3 INTs. That's unsustainable. I think it'll probably even out somewhere along the way there. But this feels like a destiny season for Vernon Adams Jr. But like you said, any team, any week can win. I've been doing this podcast long enough to know that, this one's in the bag. That's why the game's got to be played. That being said, when it comes to paces, Bo Levi Mitchell is on pace to throw for over 6,000 yards. And Alexander Hollins is on pace for over 2,000 yards. And actually the biggest season yardage-wise in CFL history. We've talked about receivers a lot this year. We did the top 10 receivers video on YouTube. We were recently called idiots for having Alan Pitts at number 2. But there have been 3 receivers in CFL history to eclipse 2,000 yards. That is Alan Pitts, that is Terry Greer, and that is Mookie Mitchell. So the fact it's only happened 3 times, I don't think the pace can keep up for both VA and Alexander Hollins. They've been high flying. It just goes to show that this is a test for the Riders. How do they slow down that offense? I think William Stanback, I don't think he's been really able to get going on the ground. The Riders are pretty good against the run, but they got to watch for him in the receiving game. He's got 2 touchdowns through the air now, and the Lions have really found a way to get him involved in the receiving game, and that's going to be a tough test to stop for the Rough Rider defense. It's just, you're getting attacked from every angle, and sometimes it feels like you got to wait for them to make a mistake, right?
Well, yeah, look at the game against Hamilton. It was Justin McInnis. Then they started covering Justin McInnis, and then it was Hollins. Like, so for the Riders to have any success on Saturday, is they need to limit BC to field goals. That's going to be the main thing here, because if they let Vernon score 3 or 4 touchdowns, I don't think it's going to be a close game at all, to be honest with you. But the Riders have been a bend but don't break team. They have been great against the run, but they have given up a fair amount of passing yards. It's just they haven't given up too many passing touchdowns. Their red zone defense has actually been pretty good. So again, I think this is a good matchup for the Riders, just because this coach does not let anything slide. This is a very different team than last year. If this was a Craig Dickinson-led team going into BC, I would have already thought they were going to get throttled. I think it's just whether or not the fans think that they have a chance. I know Corey Mason knows that they have a chance. I know that the Riders know that they have a chance. It's just the way that he's coaching them to go 1-0 every week. That's been his motto since he's got there. And I think that it's just going to be a very exciting game for fans to watch. And I think we're all just going to be happy either way. Obviously, if the Riders lose, I'll be upset, but I know it's going to be a good game. I know that it's going to be fun, and I hope it's fun.
Good. I hope both teams have fun.
I hope both teams have fun. Yeah.
Good and bad news when it comes to personnel for the Roughriders this week on the defensive line. Charbel DeBeer and Christian Albright both haven't practiced. Malik Carney experiencing issues on the D-line, but they do welcome back Sean Bain Jr. He missed last week. There was a death in the family, so condolences to him. When he was on the field and when he has been on the field this year, he's been a big focal point of that offense. That was with Trevor Harris. Bain hasn't played with Shea Patterson yet, so we'll see how that connection works out this week. As far as the Lions go, the big receiver, Javon Catoy, hasn't practiced, dealing with a rib issue. And it's cool to see Keon Hatcher and TJ Lee both had Achilles injuries in the West Final last year, practicing in full. I don't think they'll be back onto the lineup this week, but they're nearing returns to the roster, and those are two big additions to any roster and the BC Lions. So to show what they've done so far this year, not at full strength, shows, they're a force to be reckoned with in the West Division. Now, the Edmonton Elks are home to the Ottawa REDBLACKS on Sunday, and the Elks are actually 3.5-point favorites here. The over/under at 49.5. Now, I see this game being hard-hitting, and these two teams actually have a home and home. They're playing Sunday and then Thursday. So I don't like these short weeks, but at least in this situation, they're against each other. And I don't even really know if they're going to have a day of practice in between the games. They maybe have a walkthrough, and that's about it. But these teams are going to be familiar with each other over the next few days. Now that we're talking Ottawa, I do want to mention CFL fan Jennifer Mulder, who did leave this earth on her own terms on Wednesday, and I think all CFL fans are better for have known her. She actually came to the first Two and Out live in Edmonton. I have been following her journey on Facebook as well, so condolences to those who loved her most, and like I said, we're all better for have known her. And she did live in Ottawa for the past, I believe, 12 years. The Ottawa REDBLACKS were kind of talking about their quarterback situation. Drew Brown is in concussion protocol after the hit last week in Winnipeg, so he's been limited in practice, and that's obviously a situation to watch. We don't know how these players can recover from concussions. Everyone is different, and every player is different. So that means Jeremiah Masoli has been limited at practice as well, a name that we haven't been able to bring up so far this season. And during our Ottawa REDBLACKS preview with Santino Filoso of 3 Down Nation, he said it probably is best case scenario if Jeremiah Masoli doesn't have to see the field this year, because that means that Drew Brown has worked out. And, signing him in the offseason and giving him the reins to the team has worked out. Obviously, injuries do happen in full contact sport like football. So, could Dustin Crum get the start if Drew Brown isn't ready to go? Either way, this really feels like, and hey, I just said it 5 minutes ago. You don't want to put in all your eggs in one basket. I don't want to be the Drake to the Edmonton Elks, but it really feels like they're going to get their first win of the season. And the fact that it is at home, I don't know. This feels like Opportunity City for the Elks coming off the bye, Sheldon.
It does. And I thought about it this whole week. I've been thinking, yeah, Edmonton's got this. So I hope they don't let, the Edmonton Elk fans down. But you just, I don't know if Sean Oakman or if Derek Moncrief are going to be ready to go or not for this first game.
Yes, they will be. I actually sent a message to Dave Campbell, the birthday boy on Wednesday. Happy birthday, Dave, with 6:30 Ched. Oakman and Moncrief will be on the field. Okay,
so when you can add a player of, I'll say Sean Oakman's caliber, because he had it last year. Moncrief was starting to slow a little bit, but like I said last week, I still think he has gas in the tank. But when you can add those two players on defense, and like you said last week, I think Rock Armstead is leading the league in yards per carry. So if they can, kind of try to shut that down, and if McLeod Bethel-Thompson can get in any sort of rhythm with Curly Gittins or with Eugene Lewis, this could be a very fun day at Commonwealth for Elks fans, I think.
Well, and I mentioned Winnipeg giving up the most rushing yards per game. Edmonton's second most, 108 yards rushing a game and 4.9 yards a carry. So the Elks have struggled against the run so far this year, and that's a point of strength for the REDBLACKS. And Raquel Armstead has had a great start to the season, 5.6 yards a carry. And hey, if there's going to be a change at quarterback for the REDBLACKS, maybe they're going to have to lean on him even more. But let's face it, if Dustin Crum does start, that guy runs too. And it'll wear down any defense if you're going to have to, defend the run 25 or 30 times a game. The REDBLACKS have added some running back depth to their roster by signing Levante Bellamy. He did spend last year with Calgary, and there were a lot of people that were high on him in Calgary. But again, the depth in Calgary really allowed him to go off, and now he is with the Ottawa REDBLACKS. But you mentioned it about Edmonton. Adding two vets to your defense in the middle of a season during a bye week, that just seems quite rare. That's almost like, maybe not, but it's like Montreal being able to add Darnell Sankey and Sean Lemon in the same year. I'm not.
I was literally going to say that.
I'm not saying that the Elks are going to go on a run like that, but look at their schedule here. Back to back with Ottawa. And then they got Hamilton. Could they be 3-4?
That could be 3 dubs. That could be 3.
And then after that, they do play Saskatchewan, which those two
and
teams
then a loss. That's cool.
Within a score. The Riders had to come back at Commonwealth Stadium. It'll be a different animal this time around, being at Mosaic for the Elks, but I don't know. I've been here before with the Elks where I really believed that they were going to pull out a victory. Now, if I remember correctly, the team that Edmonton beat at home to end that crazy long home losing streak was Ottawa. I think it was.
Think so.
So if you buy a ticket to the Elks game this Sunday, that'll also double as your ticket into K-Days, the fair starting in Edmonton. It's like $20 to get in. So, man, I hope to get down to K-Days. I just love a lot of the food from the Stampede will go up Highway 2 to Edmonton, and I do just love the ridiculous stuff you can get on the Midway. I love the classics, the mini donuts, the elephant ears kind of thing. But I think at the Stampede last year, I had a foot-long pizza hot dog. That'll grease your insides up. And they actually had foot-long fries as well. I don't know where you find potatoes. I mean, it was on a Midway. Maybe it wasn't a potato. But foot-long fry, man. It was crazy.
Maybe was it like a foot-long mashed potato turned into a fry, maybe?
Maybe. It could have been.
I could see that happening. I think last year at the X, I had a pickle corn dog.
Was it good? Was it good?
It was, yeah, it was really good.
Pickles are like a giant pickle right now.
Yeah, it was like a giant pickle that was cut open, and then the hot dog went inside it, and then it was corn battered. It was pretty good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
Whew. See, you got to get your ticket to the Elks so you can go to K-Days and try some crazy stuff like this. Oh, I gotta look at the K-Days music lineup. I don't know. I have so much fun. There's some Theory of a Dead Man's playing. Hey, your guys, Simple Plan, are gonna be there. Are you a fan with them?
Oh yeah, I'm I'm addicted to them.
Ja Rule and Ludacris. Now, Ludacris
one of those guys is cool.
Luda is playing the same day as Elks and Ticats on the 28th. So I want to try to find a way how I can do both. I don't know if it's possible.
Luda is playing the Regina X this year too.
Really?
Yeah, and this weekend I'll actually be out at Craven, so I get to see Nickelback at Craven, which is kind of interesting. I'm excited for that.
I honestly don't know. I know they got the Netflix documentary. Are they doing more country music, or are they just doing their thing?
They just do their thing. Apparently, I saw that they did a country festival in Vancouver, I think, and they like played a song with like Luke Bryan or something. But they played all their rock hits. They like some of their poppier stuff can kind of be a little country sounding if he changes his voice a little bit. But
look at country music now; it's not very country.
Yeah, I expect a typical Nickelback show, and then Luke Combs is on Sunday. So I'm excited.
You get a lot of Luke Combs lookalike comments, don't you?
I do. We'll see if it happens again.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be on stage? Now, Nickelback, they used to do a pretty dynamite cover of Metallica's Sad But True. Could it be the first time a Metallica song is played at Craven? That's actually pretty crazy. I would love to see that.
I hope so. I hope so.
Somehow this relates to Ottawa and Edmonton. I just find that here come the Elks. I don't think their offense has been the problem at all. It's the defense and the explosive plays that they seem to like do okay and then just collapse and give up these massive touchdowns. Here's the thing. I don't know if Ottawa has the ability to have those explosive plays. And I would love to see the splits. But Ottawa's looked okay at home, and then on the road, just haven't got it done. So being on the road this week in Edmonton is going to be tough for them. Maybe there is a change at quarterback depending on if Drew Brown is good to go, but they're probably going to want to slow it down, much like Calgary may want to do against Winnipeg, and just feed Armstead the rock, work in Braylon Addison on with the running game as well. At times this year, Tommy Condell and that REDBLACKS offense, they've been quite imaginative and throwing all sorts of misdirection at teams. And the REDBLACKS are going to want to make that happen against Edmonton. As for Edmonton, you got to think it's coming. Like, when is the Geno Lewis breakout for the Elks? He's too good to, be number 3 or 4 on that team. I understand that it benefits the likes of Curly Gittins and Dylan Mitchell, when Geno is getting covered by the best boundary corners in the CFL, but they got to get him going at some point.
Well, yeah, and he's making like what, 260? Like
big money.
that's a lot of money for a decoy or for somebody to take the double team. Like he needs to be he's the guy who said himself that 50-50 balls aren't 50-50 balls, they're 90-10s. And so he's the one who needs to start coming down with some of these 90-10s. But honestly, like McLeod Bethel Thompson hasn't even really been throwing the 90-10s to him. So
yeah, I don't think they've taken enough shots and even really given him the opportunity to have those big catches.
No, and McLeod isn't really that type of quarterback, I guess. He's more of a dink and dunker, right? So but he did like have success every now and then airing it out in Toronto. So I think that is something that can get your team just rolling. It can get the fans into it. Like just start off the game with like a nice big toss to Gino, get him going. Like that's, I don't know. It's kind of baffling that like you said before, the offense hasn't been the problem, but imagine if that offense also included Eugene Lewis, playing up to his potential.
And they haven't been able to run the ball. Like, so McLeod's been able to move the ball. Sometimes this year there have been untimely turnovers. But without Kevin Brown having the holes to move it, a lot of the pressure has been put on McLeod Bethel Thompson and the receivers. And I know he's got the previous relationship and the chemistry with Curly Gittens Jr. I'm just looking at Curly Gittens' fantasy numbers. His lowest point total this season has been 15.2. That was week 1 against the Riders. So they keep looking to him constantly. McLeod keeps looking to him all the time. So I do think he's a good option in that Elks offense. And hey, if they're not going to be able to run the ball, I think they're pretty good at spreading the ball around, at least to Mitchell and Gittens. And Hergy Mayala has had a great start to the season. After the bye, he's trending to get back onto the field this weekend as well. And at times this year, the Ottawa REDBLACKS secondary hasn't been able to get that done. And I said, we've been talking about some of the worst teams against the run. Ottawa's one of them. 105.8 yards a game. As far as pass defense goes, Ottawa's kind of middle of the pack there. And I think their defense has potential too. But if their offense isn't able to stay on the field, then the Elks are going to have a lot of opportunities. I did kind of talk about Curly Gittens. That's because he is on my fantasy roster, and so is McLeod Bethel Thompson. The Elks have been dynamite in the red zone if they get to the red zone. So yeah. I guess that's problem number 1. Step 2, finish those drives and throw to Curly Gittens Jr. for the benefit of my fantasy team. I've also got Brady Oliveira and Walter Fletcher. Now, Fletcher maybe not having the most success running the ball for the Alouettes, but if they keep throwing him the ball, he had 100 yards last week receiving. I mean, if he's going to keep doing that, I'm going to be happy with that on my roster. I've also got Keon Julian Grant of the Alouettes. I've got Alexander Hollins of the BC Lions. And I'm taking the Elks defense. So, Sheldon, as you can tell, I'm all in on the Elks in week 6.
Well, you're all in on the Elks, and I'm kind of all in on the Alouettes because I have Cody Fajardo as my quarterback and captain. I have Walter Fletcher and Brady Oliveira, like you. Tyson Philpott, Justin McInnes, Jarrett Stearns, and I have the Winnipeg defense. We'll see how that goes.
Week 6 of CFL football starts with the Alouettes, 6.5-point favorites over the Argos. The Bombers are 4.5-point favorites over the Stamps. The Lions, 7.5-point favorites over the Riders. And we have the Elks, 3.5-point favorites over the REDBLACKS. Sweep it. I'm taking the home teams. Edmonton, BC, Winnipeg, and Montreal. Who do you got, Sheldon?
The same.
Get the brooms out, sweep it for the home teams in week 6. I'm Travis Currah. He is Sheldon Jones. Make sure you like, subscribe. You can comment as well on YouTube. You can buy 2 and Out merchandise at 2andout.ca. You can like, subscribe, and review on your favorite podcatchers as well. Enjoy week 6 of CFL football. Just, I guess, a housekeeping note. The recap of week 6 will be a little bit late. Sheldon's going to be at Craven on Sunday. I'm going to be at the game in Edmonton on Sunday. So instead of recording at 1 in the morning, we're going to do it sometime in the afternoon on Monday and hopefully have it out to you that evening. Stay safe, have fun this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week after week 6.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.